Updated, everything we know C/2013 Atlas. The call came in at 3:47 a.m. Dr. Marcus Chen felt his hands shake as he held the phone while his colleague's breathless voice shouted from the other end. Marcus, you need to see this now. Atlas. It changed from green to red in 14 minutes. That's impossible. This can't be happening. Marcus's heart raced. 14 minutes. Comets don't do that. Space rocks don't do that. For God's sake, nothing in the known universe does that. He ran barefoot to the computer in his apartment in Pasadena, California, the laptop still warm from the previous night's analysis. When the images from the Hubble Space Telescope loaded on the screen, Marcus felt the air rush out of his lungs as if someone had punched him in the stomach. There was C/2013 Atlas, the object NASA had been calling a supercomet for months, pulsing in shades of deep crimson, like blood spilled against the black void of space. But it wasn't just the color. There was something else. Patterns. Perfectly symmetrical geometric lines on the surface that definitely weren't there yesterday. Marcus zoomed in until his eyes burned. That wasn't ice reflecting sunlight. It was something else. Something deliberate. Something designed. My God, he whispered to the empty room. You're not a comet, are you? 3 years earlier, when Atlas was first detected approaching the solar system at speeds that shouldn't have been possible, Marcus was only 29, the youngest astrophysicist on NASA's Near-Earth Object Tracking Team. Everyone laughed when he suggested they needed to investigate further. It's just another dirty piece of ice, they said. Relax, kid. But Marcus couldn't relax. Not when the numbers didn't add up. The object was between 440 meters and a frightening 5 kilometers in diameter, an absurd uncertainty that only existed because the gases around it distorted any accurate measurement. Its mass? Approximately 33 billion tons. Its speed? Too fast for any natural comet. And most disturbing, that speed was changing. It accelerated. It decelerated. As if something were controlling its engines. Marcus had tried to warn his superiors. We need more telescope time, he pleaded in meetings. This object is not following the normal laws of cometary physics. They filed his report away. They said he was seeing patterns where none existed. Too young. Too inexperienced. Too paranoid. Now, looking at those impossible lines on Atlas's surface, Marcus realized he had 3 months until the object reached its closest point to the Sun, 210 million kilometers, just inside the orbit of Mars. What if Harvard professor Avi Loeb was right? What if Atlas wasn't a random space rock, but advanced technology in disguise, traveling through the galaxy for millions of years? The phone vibrated again. Message from NASA. Emergency meeting 6 a.m. Attendance mandatory. Do not discuss Atlas externally. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. They knew. NASA knew something and was hiding it. Why? He looked again at the pulsing image on the screen. Atlas was 270 million kilometers from Earth. Far too distant to pose any immediate physical danger. But what if the danger wasn't impact? What if it was something else entirely? Something humanity wasn't even remotely prepared to face? Marcus thought of his 7-year-old daughter sleeping in the next room. Emma had asked him last night, "Daddy, are the stars your friends, or can they hurt us?" He had laughed and said that stars were just very distant balls of gas. Safe. Harmless. Now he wasn't so sure. The next image from Hubble arrived. Atlas had changed again. This time to a bright greenish hue that scientists had only seen once before, in comets containing lethal levels of cyanide. But that didn't explain the geometric patterns. It didn't explain the speed changes. It didn't explain anything at all. Marcus saved all the images to an encrypted drive. Something told him he would need this evidence later. Something told him that the 6 p.m. meeting would not be about science, it would be about controlling the narrative. About keeping the public in the dark, while something monumental unfolded above their heads. He had 3 hours until the meeting. 3 hours to decide whether he would be an obedient scientist or ask the question that could destroy his career. What if we are being visited? If your heart is racing as much as mine did when I discovered this data, subscribe to the channel because what comes next will challenge everything you thought you knew about our place in the universe. Marcus drank cold coffee straight from yesterday's thermos, his eyes fixed on the screen. The first rays of sunlight were beginning to stream through his window when he finally found what he was looking for in the 1977 radio astronomy archives. The famous WOW signal, that 72-second transmission picked up by Ohio University's Big Ear radio telescope that was never explained. The strongest signal ever detected coming from deep space. And when Marcus superimposed Atlas's trajectory onto the star map where the WOW signal had come from, his hands began to shake uncontrollably. 9 degrees of difference. Only 9 degrees separated the origin of the signal that night in 1977 and Atlas's current trajectory. The conference room at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory was freezing when Marcus entered at 5:53 a.m. 7 minutes early. But this time he wasn't alone. Dr. Catherine Walsh was already there, sitting at the head of the table with a thick black folder in front of her. NASA's Director of Scientific Communications was 58 years old, with impeccably styled gray hair and an ironclad reputation for controlling public narratives during crises. Catherine never showed up at routine scientific meetings. Marcus's stomach churned. "Dr. Chen," she said without looking up from her documents. Her voice was ice cold. "Close the door." 30 seconds of silence dragged on like 30 minutes. Finally, she looked up and slid a printed sheet across the table. It was the NASA server access log. Highlighted in yellow, Marcus Chen, unauthorized download of 47 classified files at 4:23 a.m. You copied restricted data to a personal drive. That is a direct violation of Level 4 security protocol. Marcus's blood ran cold. They were monitoring everything. "I needed the files for further analysis," Marcus replied, forcing firmness into his voice. "The changes Atlas is exhibiting are explainable." Catherine cut him off. "Variations in the chemical composition of the core exposed to solar radiation. Perfectly normal phenomena in long-period comets." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. What about the geometric patterns? The symmetrical lines on the surface? Image processing artifacts. Pixels degraded by space transmission. Catherine closed the folder with a sharp click. "Dr. Chen, you're brilliant. But you're seeing patterns that don't exist because you want them to exist. You saw the same images I did. Atlas is changing color by the minute. Its speed fluctuates impossibly. And the trajectory." He stopped. Catherine had an expression that Marcus recognized immediately. It wasn't ignorance. It was deliberately hidden knowledge. "You know," Marcus whispered. "You already know what it is, don't you?" The silence lasted an eternity. Catherine slowly got up and walked to the window. The rising sun painted everything orange and red, the colors of Mars, the colors of Atlas. In 1977, when Jerry Emmon detected the WOW signal, do you know what happened next? She began without looking at Marcus. The government spent $2.3 billion over 5 years looking for that signal again. They never found it. Do you know why? Marcus didn't answer. His heart was beating so hard he could hear it in his ears. Because it wasn't meant to be found again. It was an announcement. A message saying, "We're coming." And now, 48 years later, Catherine finally turned around. The trajectory of Atlas. The 9-degree difference from the origin of the WOW signal. It's no coincidence. Marcus felt the floor disappear beneath his feet. My God. Atlas is the answer to the WOW signal? I'm saying there are much bigger things at stake here than your scientific curiosity. There are 8 billion people on Earth who wake up every day thinking we're alone in the universe. Do you want to take that away from them? If the truth is that we are not alone, the truth has caused wars. It has destroyed civilizations. Catherine returned to the table with heavy steps. In 1938, Orson Welles made a fake radio broadcast about an alien invasion and people literally killed themselves in panic. Imagine what would happen today. With social media. With nuclear weapons in 9 countries. Marcus thought of Emma sleeping with her teddy bear, carefree, innocent. How much time do we have? Marcus asked, his voice cracking. Atlas reaches perihelion in exactly 87 days. After that, Catherine opened the folder again, revealing trajectory charts Marcus had never seen before. Our models show 3 scenarios. First, Atlas continues its orbit and leaves the solar system. Second, it fragments near the sun like normal comets. Third, she paused, and Marcus saw something he had never seen on Catherine Walsh's face before, genuine fear. Third, it slows down. It parks in Martian orbit. And releases something. The room spun. Releases what? We don't know. Probes. Drones. Maybe even. Catherine swallowed hard. Occupants. Marcus remembered Avi Loeb's comparison, the Trojan horse. A seemingly innocent gift hiding an existential threat. The Trojans never suspected until it was too late. Why are you telling me this? Catherine slid a document across the table. Confidentiality Agreement. National Security Clause. 25 years in prison for leaking information. Because you're good. We've seen things that took our team weeks to notice. And because we're going to need the brightest minds working on this if Scenario 3 is confirmed. But on our terms. Our rules. Our absolute control of the narrative. Marcus looked at the document. A dotted line waiting for his signature. If he signed, he became part of the conspiracy. If he refused, he would be silenced anyway. What if I don't sign? Catherine stood up to leave. Then you go home, hug your daughter Emma. Yes, we know everything about you, and watch the world end on television without being able to do anything about it. The door closed with a soft click. Marcus was left alone in the cold room, the document glowing under the fluorescent lights, the weight of all humanity suddenly on his 32-year-old shoulders. Outside, through the window, Mars glowed like a red in the morning sky. In 87 days, Atlas would be there. Waiting. Watching. Or worse. Marcus picked up the pen. His hands were shaking so much he could barely hold it. He thought of all the scientists throughout history who had to choose between truth and safety. Galileo forced to deny that the Earth revolved around the sun, Oppenheimer watching his bomb destroy cities. Now it was his turn. The tip of the pen touched the paper when his phone vibrated. Message from an unknown number. Dr. Chen. Don't sign. They're lying about Scenario 3. The truth is much worse. Go to the south parking lot in 10 minutes. Alone. A friend. Marcus put the pen in his pocket without signing. The document lay there on the table like a coiled snake waiting to strike. He left the room with controlled steps, even though every cell in his body screamed to run. 10 minutes. He had 10 minutes to get to the south parking lot. The California heat hit his face as Marcus pushed open the glass doors. He crossed the garden where tourists were taking pictures in front of the replica of the Curiosity rover and turned the corner to the less busy parking lot of the complex. A black Civic with tinted windows was parked in the far corner. As Marcus approached, the passenger door opened by itself. Get in. Quick. Marcus slid into the car. The smell of cold coffee and old papers invaded his nostrils. And then he saw who was in the driver's seat, and his world turned upside down for the second time that morning. Dr. Sarah Mendez. Senior astronomer at the Keck Observatory in Hawaii. Marcus knew her only from conferences, a 45-year-old woman with an impeccable reputation, a NASA consultant for 15 years. Now she was there, with deep dark circles under her eyes, her hands shaking as she held a cracked tablet. Sarah. What the hell are you? They killed Professor Loeb. The air rushed out of Marcus's lungs as if someone had stabbed him in the chest. What? Avi Loeb. Found dead in his apartment 3 days ago. Officially. Heart attack. Sarah turned the tablet toward Marcus. Unofficially. He was 62, ran marathons, zero heart history. And he died exactly 18 hours after publishing a paper suggesting that Atlas could be alien technology. Marcus felt bile rise in his throat. Avi Loeb, Harvard's most respected scientist, just eliminated? Are you sure about this? As sure as I am that we're being watched right now. Sarah discreetly pointed to an unmarked white van 3 spots ahead. 2 men inside. Same van I saw in front of my house in Hawaii yesterday. Sarah started the car and drove slowly, casually, out of the parking lot. The white van didn't follow them, at least not visibly. 5 minutes later, they were in an almost empty Denny's. Sarah chose a table in the far corner, with her back to the wall, from where she could see the entrance and all the windows. 3 weeks ago, Sarah started without touching her coffee. Loeb called me in the middle of the night. He said he had discovered something in the spectrographic analyses of Atlas. Something that NASA was omitting from public reports. What? Rare earth elements in the surface composition. Specifically, neodymium, europium, terbium. Do you know what these elements have in common? Marcus mentally searched his chemistry database. They're used in advanced technology, permanent magnets, lasers. Exactly. And they don't occur naturally in comets. Sarah slid her finger across graphs on her tablet. Loeb analyzed 847 known comets. 0 showed this spectral signature. Atlas is the only one. Marcus felt the same vertigo he had when he saw the geometric patterns. That means... It means Atlas isn't a random space rock. It's manufactured. Constructed. Sarah leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. And there's more. Loeb got unauthorized telescope time at Keck. You know what he found on the surface? The geometric lines. Not just lines, Marcus. Doors. He identified 23 perfectly symmetrical rectangular structures. Each one exactly 47 meters high by 23 meters wide. Almost exact golden ratio. Sarah paused. 23 closed doors traveling through space inside an object everyone calls a comet. Marcus's cup was frozen in midair. 23 doors. For what? For whom? Catherine Walsh told me that Scenario 3 is Atlas parking in Martian orbit and releasing probes, Marcus said slowly. Was she lying? Walsh is managing the biggest cover-up operation since Project Manhattan. Sarah pulled out a printed photo, Catherine leaving an unmarked building in Nevada. 2 days after we detected Atlas, she traveled to Area 51. She stayed there for 72 hours. Marcus had no answer. But his mind was already connecting dots he desperately wanted to disconnect. The real Scenario 3, Sarah continued, her voice breaking, is that when Atlas reaches perihelion in 87 days, it won't just park. It will open. All 23 doors simultaneously. And whatever is inside will come out. Denny's seemed completely silent. Marcus could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights, the blood pulsing in his ears. Loeb calculated that if Atlas traveled millions of years across the galaxy while remaining intact, then the technology required is centuries beyond ours. And if such an advanced civilization decided to send something to our solar system, why didn't they make open contact? Why disguise it as a comet? Loeb had 3 theories. First, it's an interstellar arc. A dying civilization sending survivors to a system with habitable planets. Second, it's a von Neumann probe, a self-replicating machine designed to colonize. Third theory. She stopped, biting her lip until it turned white. Sarah. What's the third theory? It's a Trojan horse. A disguised military ship, waiting for the right moment to. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Marcus thought of Emma. Her laughter, her hugs before bedtime. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that the universe isn't a magical, safe place? Why did Catherine Walsh offer me a place on the team then? Because you discovered too much on your own. You're too smart to be discarded. So they make you sign contracts that make you an accomplice. And if you really become a problem. Sarah lightly touched the photo of Avi Loeb. You have a convenient heart attack. Marcus stood up so abruptly that the table shook. He needed air. He needed to think. His phone vibrated. Message from NASA. Dr. Chen. We noticed you left campus without signing the documents. We expect you back in 30 minutes. It's in everyone's best interest. K. Walsh. A veiled threat wrapped in polite corporate language. What do I do? Marcus whispered. How do I fight this? Sarah placed something heavy in his hand. A tiny flash drive. All of Loeb's observations. Spectrographic data. Images of the gates. Trajectory calculations. Everything he discovered before he died. It was in the mail when the news of his death arrived. He knew he didn't have much time. Why are you giving me this? Because you have a daughter. You have something to lose. That makes you dangerous, but it also gives you motivation. Sarah stood up, throwing $20 on the table. And because in 87 days, when Atlas opens its doors, I want at least someone to know the truth. Even if we can't stop it. She walked to the door, stopped, turned one last time. Marcus. Don't trust anyone at NASA. Don't trust the government. But trust the data. The numbers don't lie. And the numbers say we're about to have company. Then Sarah Mendez left Denny's and drove away. Marcus would never see her again. He stood there in the parking lot, the sun burning his back, the flash drive burning even harder in his clenched hand. Inside that little piece of plastic was everything. Irrefutable proof that humanity was not alone. Marcus looked at his phone. 11:43 a.m. 17 minutes until Catherine Walsh's deadline. 17 minutes to decide between safety and truth. He thought about the wow signal of 1977. How those 72 seconds changed nothing because no one believed it. How humanity continued its ignorant, happy existence, secure in its illusion of cosmic solitude. Marcus squeezed the flash drive until its edges cut into his skin. Then he started the car and drove. Not back to NASA. Not home. To the only place where he still had allies who weren't in the government's pocket. 87 days later, Marcus Chen stood on the roof of his new apartment in Portland, Oregon, with Emma at his side holding a small telescope he had given her for her birthday. The sky was exceptionally clear that October night, as if the universe wanted everyone to witness what was about to happen. Daddy, I can see it. Emma shouted, pointing to the small bright spot that was Atlas approaching its perihelion. It's really changing color. Marcus smiled, but his chest felt tight. The last 3 months had been the most intense of his life. After the article was published, everything changed. First came chaos, conspiracy theories, panic on social media, governments denying everything. But then came the data. Independent scientists around the world confirmed Loeb's findings. University telescopes captured the same images of the 23 structures. Impossible to deny. Public pressure forced NASA to hold a historic press conference 2 weeks ago. Catherine Walsh, visibly aged, admitted everything in front of billions of viewers. The Atlas transmission. The mathematical message. The knowledge waiting to be released. She cried as she apologized to Avi Loeb's family, admitting that his death raised serious questions that were being investigated. No one was arrested. But Catherine resigned the next day. Marcus lost his job at NASA, obviously. But he gained something much greater, offers from dozens of universities wanting to hire him. Invitations to speak around the world. And most importantly, the respect of honest scientists who understood that he had done the right thing when it cost him everything. Sarah Mendez had been missing for 3 weeks, causing Marcus to fear the worst. But then she appeared at a press conference in Washington, confirming everything Marcus had published and presenting her own independent analyses. She was alive. They couldn't silence her too. Dad, it's happening. Emma's voice brought him back to the present. Marcus looked through the larger telescope he had mounted on the roof. His heart nearly stopped. Atlas was approaching the sun, and even from millions of miles away, visible changes were taking place. The surface was beginning to glow, not with the diffuse glow of an evaporating comet, but with deliberate geometric patterns. Lines of pulsing light ran across the surface like circuits waking up after millennia of sleep. Marcus's phone rang. It was a group call with Thomas Way, Sarah Mendez, and 50 other scientists scattered around the world, all observing the same phenomenon in real time. "The doors are lighting up," Sarah's voice echoed through the speaker. "Opening sequence initiated." Marcus checked his watch. 11:47 p.m. In exactly 13 minutes, according to calculations, Atlas would reach its perihelion and the doors would open. He lowered the telescope and hugged Emma tightly. "Honey, you're about to witness the most important moment in human history. Remember how we talked about this? That dead stars are sending us gifts so we don't die too?" "Exactly." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "And all of this happened because brave people refused to stay silent. Professor Loeb refused. Sarah refused. And Daddy refused too. Do you think Professor Loeb is watching from heaven?" Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. "I'm sure he is. And I'm sure he's smiling." The minutes dragged on like hours. Marcus watched through the telescope, narrating to Emma what he saw while scientists on the phone did the same from their observatories. The whole world was watching, live broadcasts on every news channel, billions of people glued to their screens, humanity united for the first time in generations with a single purpose: to witness contact. 11:59 p.m. 1 minute remaining. And then it happened. The 23 doors of Atlas opened simultaneously in the absolute silence of the space vacuum. But what came out were not ships. They were not invaders. It was light, incredibly bright beams of coded electromagnetic radiation shooting in all directions like cosmic fireworks. Transmission detected on all frequencies. Thomas shouted into the phone. "Radio, infrared, X-rays. It's everything. They're sending everything at once." Marcus watched in awe as those beams of light crossed space. Within minutes, they would be hitting receivers on Earth. Satellites. Telescopes. Radio observatories. Any device capable of picking up electromagnetic signals would receive the data. Impossible to censor. Impossible to control. The knowledge of an entire civilization being poured out freely to anyone capable of receiving it. "Daddy, it's beautiful," Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face without her fully understanding why. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was the most profound thing Marcus had ever witnessed. His laptop began to beep frantically. Data coming in. Scientists around the world already beginning to decode it. The first translations appearing in real time on open forums. Marcus read the first few lines and had to sit down, his legs failing him. "To the inhabitants of the third planet. We were like you. Young. Fearful. Divided. We destroyed our world in wars over what you call resources and power. Our last 10,000 survivors built this library as penance. As a warning. As a gift. Inside you will find cures for 847 diseases. Energy that will last 10,000 years. Methods to clean oceans. Technologies to feed trillions. And most important, our complete history of mistakes so you don't repeat them. Use it wisely. Survive where we failed. And one day, when you send your own libraries to distant stars, remember us. The guardians who died so others might live." Marcus couldn't hold it in. Deep sobs shook his body as he held Emma, who was also crying without fully understanding, just feeling the emotional magnitude of the moment through her father's embrace. Sarah Mendez was crying on the phone. So was Thomas Way. 50 scientists around the world, people who had dedicated their entire lives to seeking answers about our place in the universe, finally receiving the most beautiful and tragic answer possible. We were not alone. We never had been. And those who came before us loved us enough to give us a chance they never had. Marcus's phone rang again. Unknown number. He answered with a trembling hand. Dr. Chen? An older female voice, heavy with emotion. This is Margaret Loeb. Avi Loeb's widow. Marcus's heart stopped. Mrs. Loeb, thank you. She was crying. Thank you for finishing his work. For having the courage that cost him everything. My husband died believing that truth mattered more than safety. You proved he was right. Wherever Avi is now, I know he's proud of you. Marcus couldn't respond. He just nodded as tears streamed down his face, even though she couldn't see him. His legacy will live on, Margaret continued, her voice breaking. Because of you. Because of Sarah. Because of every scientist who refused to stay silent. You saved humanity today. When the call ended, Marcus looked at Emma. Honey, do you know why Daddy did what he did? Why I risked everything? To save the world. No. To save you. Your generation. All the children who will grow up in a world that no longer needs to repeat old mistakes. A world that knows the truth. Marcus pointed to the sky where Atlas still shone, its doors open, pouring out knowledge. That civilization died so that you could live. And scientists like Professor Loeb died to ensure that you would receive this gift. Never forget that. Emma hugged Marcus tightly. When I grow up, I'm going to be a scientist too. I'm going to continue Professor Loeb's work. And one day I'm going to build our own library for other stars. Marcus smiled through his tears. In that moment, holding his daughter under a sky full of promises from dead civilizations and hopes from living ones, he understood something fundamental. Truth always wins. It may cost everything. It may require unimaginable sacrifices. It may destroy careers and end lives. But eventually, inevitably, truth wins. And when it does, it is worth every tear. 3 months later, the first cure for leukemia derived from Atlas data saved 47,000 lives. 6 months later, the first fusion reactor based on alien technology began operating in Iceland, providing clean energy to 500,000 people. A year later, 193 countries signed the Atlas Treaty, committing to share all knowledge freely, without patents, without secrets, without wars for control. Avi Loeb was posthumously nominated for the Nobel Prize. Sarah Mendez became the first director of the newly created Global Institute for Interstellar Studies. And Marcus Chen wrote a book called The Last Gift of the Guardians, which became required reading in schools around the world. But none of that mattered as much as the question Emma asked that night on the roof, watching Atlas complete its 7-billion-year mission. Dad, if we use everything they gave us, will we be able to not die like them? And Marcus, looking out at the vast universe full of lessons from civilizations that had failed and hopes for civilizations that could still succeed, gave the only honest answer he had. It's up to us, sweetheart. The Guardians gave us the tools. Now it's up to us to be wise enough to use them. And brave enough to choose truth over comfort. Always. If you've made it this far on this journey, you understand that difficult truths are worth more than comfortable lies. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us that our greatest strength as a species is not our technology or our intelligence. It's our ability to learn from mistakes, our own and others, and choose a better path. In the end, C/2013 Atlas wasn't just a cosmic object. It was a mirror, showing us what we can become if we choose wisdom over greed, unity over division, truth over control. The Guardians died billions of years ago. But on that October night, under a sky full of promise, they finally fulfilled their last mission. They saved us from ourselves. Now it is up to us to honor that sacrifice by being worthy of the gift we have received.